So, but this was the Nick Fury I've been wanting to see. Wheeling, dealing, smooth, 4 or 5 steps ahead, confident, even when he's tired. He's got plans in motion, and he still saves the day, although there's a heavy price to pay along the way. What's up, y'all? DT2 Comics Chat here, ready to review Secret Invasion Episode 4. Now, this is what I've been talking about. This is what I've been waiting on since I started this series. Now, I know not a lot of people are necessarily interested or invested in this series, but I started watching it because it was Nick Fury. Now, I want you to think about this may be the last time we see Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury. And one thing we can say without equivocation, and that's this is the longest time we've been able to spend with Nick Fury since we met him on the big screen in the MCU. Now, we still haven't as much of a reveal of pathways into his heart and his motivation. We've only gotten 1 or 2 flashbacks. So it hasn't been the deep dive into Fury's life that I expected it to be, that I wanted it to be. But at least we do get to spend some time in his world. And we have found out some things about him, but, maybe true to form, the character still remains largely a mystery, which makes him so interesting to watch because whatever he's going to do, it's going to be incredible, but you have no idea really what he's thinking. I also want to say that every conversation in this episode was gold. I loved it, man. I loved it. It was written well. The actors brought it. So let's run through the events from the top. I'm glad Gaia isn't dead, but we kind of knew she wasn't dead because they wouldn't get rid of Emilia Clarke that quickly in the series, even though we've only got 2 more episodes to go. So we see that before she gets caught on the road, she exposed herself to another Skrull's identity, stole the brain patterns, and exposed herself to extremist tech. Now, I must say, I feel like that was a cheat because that's too easy. So you just grab someone else's memories and then you just bathe a few seconds in this tech and now you've got it, and no side effects, no complications, no problems, and it works exactly as it should. If it was that easy, they would have developed Super Skrulls a long time ago. So that was a bit of a cheat, but I understand it's necessary to bring Gaia back. And I must also say that this episode, she finally shows some worthy and, requisite emotions. So when she's having her conversation with her father, Talos, on the park bench, she lays it out as plainly as this show has ever done. She said, "You have got to tell me, Father, Dad, that you've got a plan because Gravik has one and he's already activated his and it's working." And so Talos, for the first time, we see his extreme naive attack, because every character that believes that Talos is the Professor X and Gravik is the Magneto of this situation. And every character that believes we can have peaceful harmony, we can have a world that we share. And if we just show the president who we really are, then we'll be able to garner sanctuary for the 1 million of us that are here. And as he said it, Guy is looking at him like, for the first time, Emilia Clarke is like, "Man, is you crazy?" And I agreed with her 100% because as I heard him talking about it, I'm like, have you studied history at all? You come from a planet that's been ravaged by war. There's a generational war between the Kree and the Skrulls, and you think showing a little kindness or a little support or a little showing them our hearts or whatever. See, this reminds me of Batman's famous line that Superman is moral because he can afford to be, because his skin is made of steel. See, that's the right thing. Superman can stand for truth, justice, the American way, all those right things, because you can't hurt him with bullets. Talos finds out the hard way that even though his dream was positive and optimistic, see, because there's always going to be bloodshed, there's always going to be conflict. If you achieve that kind of thing, there's going to be a litany of dead bodies, okay? A whole bunch of people have to pay the price to make it happen. And in this episode, Talos himself pays the ultimate price because obviously his conversation with his daughter was what we call ye old foreshadowing, a very old writing trick when a character foreshadows their own death. Because the way this episode ends with Gravik taking out Talos personally and Talos being left on the ground, it's actually his dead body because when Skrulls are killed, they morph back into their natural form. And so it's actually going to be his dead body that exposes the Skrulls to everybody else. That's the thing. So Talos kept saying, we just have to show them who we are. And his death is going to do just that. But it's the reaction. That's what's going to be fun to watch. Again, Gaia's got the right idea. She said, you're delusional, and that's not who I've become. Once again, Gaia's got the right idea. She's acknowledging the price. Now, you know who else understood this really well was the operative from Serenity. He understood that the things he had to do, the price he had to pay, he was a monster and he was evil and he was creating a better world, but he wasn't going to live in it. He understood that better than almost any character I've ever seen. And Gaia gets that now. Gaia has the attitude of the operative in Serenity. She's like, all the stuff that we've done and all the stuff that needs to be done and what we've had to become to make your dream possible has changed who we are. Okay, so I love that. Like I said, every conversation in this episode was gold. We also get to know all the stuff about Rhodey Squirrel that we wanted to know. First of all, confirmed finally that he is a Squirrel, and it's funny because he is a she as a female Squirrel masquerading as Rhodey, and that he's the one that fired Fury, or she's the one, or Squirrel Rhodey, and that Fury's wife has been in contact with him and taken orders directly from him, and that she's been a plant all along. And I really like the scene where Fury was listening to the conversation, because I told you in other reviews, it was going to be revealed that he knew what was going down. So not just he knew that she was a Squirrel, but he's known that she was a double agent or that kind of thing. I still can't believe he asked her point blank, who you become, where are your loyalties? But because that was a little too covert. But he listened to the conversation that they had in the church. That was beautiful. I love that song, by the way, but it's kind of ironic that they had non-Black people singing it about crossing over into campground. If you know anything about Negro spirituals or history or whatever, I thought that was irony. And speaking of irony, the two great confrontations Fury has, let's start with his wife. I told you when the grits hit the pan with that one, there was going to be some type of snarky resolution. It turned out to be more dramatic than I thought and more intense between them as I thought. But they say goodbye to each other in their relationship by acknowledging its reality, by saying, what I told you Fury is going to say is that I get it, I get who you are, and I get what you were doing, and I've always known. But he quoted the poem that she quoted him from the earlier flashback. Did you get what you wanted out of this life? And she said yes, to be beloved in the earth. They put both of their guns on the table. They draw and shoot. There's a brief moment because we want to see who died, and then we see her face first, and we're like, oh Lord. Then we find out they both shot wide. They both shot wide, both acknowledging that I don't really want to kill you, that I've really earnestly come to care for you in this fake marriage, this sham marriage. It wasn't totally a sham. And she asked him, if I had remained my true self in Skrull form, would you still have loved me? That's a question that only somebody that loves you would ask you. And then Fury said, I guess we'll never know, acknowledging the tragedy of their fake yet real love. I mean, there's so much going on in that scene that was so powerful. So they both realized she's got to go on the run now because she didn't complete her assignment, because Rhodey Squirrel told her to kill him, put a bullet in him, and she didn't. And Rhodey Squirrel was reporting to Gravik this whole time, so Fury was supposed to be dead. So it's really a joy to me to see their faces when he shows up in the final shootout at the end of the episode. But that was a great resolution to that relationship. And then we have the Fury Rhodey Squirrel confrontation, where Rhodey Squirrel doesn't know that Fury knows what's going on with him/her. And I want you to notice something. I want you to notice that Samuel L. Jackson plays Nick Fury at his most ghetto when he's around Rhodey. That's not accidental. They're trying to draw a contrast between somebody like Rhodey Squirrel that I told you would be called a sellout or a company man, someone that is always spouting platitudes, but they're really just a pet. They're really just property. They're not even really a person. They believe in a system that would kill them, but they're more than happy to, believe in that system to take Fury out. So they always write those scenes with great interpersonal contrast for Black people and, showing that kind of thing. But Fury is always at his most ghetto when he's in front of Rhodey. I just didn't want that to slip by without being noticed. Okay, and they both enjoy that brandy it's bourbon, they both enjoy that bourbon, that liquor, and then we find out that it's liquid tracking in the bourbon, and Rhodey Squirrel doesn't figure it out until the president calls him on the whiskey on his breath. But Fury's tracking him that way, which I thought was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So confirmed when Gaia comes back to life, it was the extremist tech, and that's what Gravik used. Again, too easy for her to obtain it, but whatever, we're going to go with that. Rhodey Squirrel tells Fury that he's going to be put on trial for the murder of Agent Hill because we have it on videotape. And Fury's like, you know that's Gravik. And Rhodey Scroll is like, you're going to use it was an alien defense and all that. So, see, all of our questions are answered by this episode, which is a really, really good position. You know why? Because that means they have to spend the last 2 episodes with sticking the landing. That means there's going to be cameos, there's going to be surprises, there's going to be resurrections, there's going to be stuff we didn't count on, and we're going to see a greater exhibition of the Super Skrull powers, guaranteed. So finally, we're down to the end, and Gravik's plan is in motion, and he says that they're going to make it look good, and it's going to be very obvious to all the U.S. forces with the helicopters firing their rockets and everything else that it's the Russians that are personally advancing on the United States president. So that has to start World War III. So they descend, and it's this huge shootout. Now, some of the framing in terms of the camera work looked like a bit of a cheat to me because many times they were way too close with way less body. There should have been way more people dead based on the sheer amount of bullets that were flying and the fact that Skrulls can be taken out with bullets just like regular humans. But, you know, they try to save the president, and it's a great shootout. Don't get me wrong about that. It's just some of it worked. It's just that some of it was cheap angles. And so Talos gets hit, and then he starts to morph back into his natural form, and he was kind of halfway, kind of like a Hulk situation. That was some really good makeup. That was really good to see. And so Gravik's plan is in motion, but Gravik kind of reveals himself in the midst of the fight and uses some stretchy power and uses his tendrils. And so it may or may not be just the pure, it was the Russians impact that he wanted, because now with Gravik revealing his powers and with Talos being a dead Skrull corpse, it's going to be obvious that there are extraterrestrials going on, and that Fury's comrades saw Talos, tried to take him out, and Fury's like, no, he's with me. That whole thing. And then Fury was surprised to see Gravik's powers manifest, and he had, you know, that look on his face. So, but this was the Nick Fury I've been wanting to see. You know, wheeling, dealing, smooth, 4 or 5 steps ahead, confident, even when he's tired. He's got plans in motion, and he still saves the day, although there's a heavy price to pay along the way. So again, I really enjoyed this episode. I really, really did. And so I'm looking forward to how they pull this out. I hope it's a great ending. I said it on Twitter, but what I really hope is that this is a bridge to introducing the Fantastic Four, and that Fury and the Fantastic Four stand against the insurgent faction of Skrulls and the classic Super Skrull, because the classic Super Skrull is given all the powers of the Fantastic Four. That would be a great way to introduce them on the big screen. I really hope that happens, but if it doesn't, I hope they at least stick the landing, because this has been some great writing, great episodes, great acting performances, and I really want to see how it plays out. All right, that's it for this week's review. Can't wait to get to episode 5, so join me for that one. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and ring the bell so you know when I am dropping new videos. And then I do a lot of lives during the week for breaking news, because when something new has gone down, like the last one I did was about Wolverine's legitimate comic costume. So be sure you ring that bell so you know when I come on live and drop new content. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode of Secret Invasion. I'm out.